speaker we have is a sportsman to life after sports. Y'all give it up to Mr. Reggie Ford.
B.I.G. Oh,
how y'all doing?
Whoa.
If you can hear,
Okay.
say
Ain't
persevere.
nobody-
I'm not going to speak unless y'all speak. If you can hear, say persevere. I like it. I like it. Now, I'm talking about perseverance, but I'm going to talk about sportsmen to life after sports. That's why we here. We got student athletes, people who have dedicated so much of their life, so much of their time and commitment to sports. But before we jump into that, I think kind of following up with Mr. Dr. Gill, tell y'all why I'm qualified to be up here. I think that's important for y'all so that y'all can understand. So I've been recognized. I'm one of the, I would say, at my age, one of the most recognized young professionals here in Nashville as Nashville Business Journal Top 40 Under 40, Nashville 30 Under 30, Black 40 Under 40, Top 100 in Finance. I've been nominated for Forbes 30 Under 30, all these great things, right? And that usually gets highlighted, especially since I've released a best-selling book and started to talk and be more public about my story and my journey. But what goes unnoticed and what goes unsaid oftentimes is all the stuff that we don't put on the resume, all the stuff that we don't put on LinkedIn, social media. And so I want to talk about that because I think that's important when we think about life after ball, because it played a huge role for me in this transition. You see, while all that good stuff was happening, I found myself lying on a cold hardwood floor, crying my eyes out as my wife was trying to console me. Can I be real with y'all? I can be real. I was bawling. I was consumed by grief. I had lost the people who were the closest to me in my entire life, either due to death or estrangement, and I really didn't know what to do, where to turn. And so I found myself on that cold hardwood floor, bawling. Anxiety and depression took on whole new meanings for me. I had heard about these things before, but I'd never known what true anxiety was until I went a whole month without sleeping. Because every time I laid down to close my eyes, I would pop back up within 2 seconds, and all this energy was inside of me, and it had to come out, right? And after that night, I remember feeling great, feeling bad, feeling great, feeling bad, my emotions going up and down all over the place. And I thought, I need to do something about this, because I cannot continue on this process forever or it's going to eat away at me. And I started to heal. I started my healing journey that next day. I went to a therapist, and I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I need to talk to somebody. I went to my primary care doctor, and I told them, I need all the resources you can have, because I am worth nothing in the business world, in the sports world, speaking, writing books, if I'm laying on that cold hardwood floor not wanting to get out of bed. And what came up, like when I was laying there, I had this out-of-body experience, and I asked myself this question: how in the world did you end up here? Right? I had all the things that I thought from a little person growing up that I wanted, that I strove for. The money, I had a wife, I had a nice home, all these great things. How in the world did you end up here? And the conclusion that I came to was a life of unresolved trauma, particularly childhood trauma. And since being on that journey and understanding that, I understand that childhood trauma is something that can stick with you for a really long time, all your life, if going unaddressed. And there's something called adverse childhood experiences. ACEs is what they're known as. And on this study, it was a questionnaire done in 1997 by the CDC, Kaiser Permanente. It looked at 17,000 adults and looked at all the trauma that they had faced as a child, and they started to rank these. And for every trauma that you have faced, it said yes, 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 yes. You got a score out of 10. Well, I took that test when I got to college, and I had a perfect 10 out of 10. Perfect 10 out of 10. That was the only test that I really didn't want an A on, but I got it. And I had to start to deal with that, start to cope with that, and start to find ways to better my mental health in face of all that adversity that I had faced. But one thing that I found out combats those adverse childhood experiences as positive childhood experiences. We're talking about sports to life after sports, and one of the things in my childhood that helped me was football. I started playing football when I was 10 years old, and before that, I really didn't have the opportunity to play because we were poor, too poor to pay for league fees, too poor to get the transportation, but there was a program called Backfield in Motion. In fact, Kevin Dyson is a board member at Backfield in Motion. We actually overlapped for a little bit as board members of the organization, but I started at Backfield in Motion, started by a man named Joe Davis, love him to death, rest his soul. He started this program because he was coaching a team in the projects, and he recognized that it was hard for his parents, for his players to show up to practices and games. And so he wanted to eliminate all the barriers that were in place that prevented them from showing up. And so he started this league, everything completely free, from the pads to the registration to traveling between games to food, and then also academic tutoring. And through that academic tutoring, my life changed tremendously. See, I got introduced to this school a couple miles west of here called Montgomery Bell Academy. And coming from where I came from, I didn't have all the beautiful courtyards and the education, the type of education I was going to get, but I had this opportunity through people recognizing me as a high achiever to go to this school. And so fast forward a couple of years, and there I was enrolling in Montgomery Bell Academy, the only person who identified as black in my class, and let me tell y'all, that was the hardest transition I've ever had to make in my entire life. And that weighed on me mentally. I didn't know, I couldn't put words to it back then, but that weighed on me mentally. But I stuck through it, and I adapted to that environment. And I think that's something so critical in transitioning, any transitions in life, is to adapt. That ability to adapt, adaptability is one of the greatest traits that you can possess. Because one constant in life, the only constant in life, is change, right? And that's an oxymoron. But the only thing that stays the same is that things change. And so you have to adapt to those things changing. And I did that. I did that at the school and got rave reviews. I was one of the top students at the school. The school's ideal student is a gentleman, scholar, athlete. And I was awarded that multiple times while I was there. Coming from a background that was totally different from all of my other classmates. And that led to so many opportunities. I had so many schools knocking at my door for college, the top universities in the country, in the world, Harvard, Yale, Penn. And I remember sitting thinking, I don't want to go to any of those schools. I don't know nobody up there. I don't care to leave Nashville. This is where my roots are. My sister, she's back here, and she was itty bitty, and I wanted to be there in her life. Because I ain't mentioned it, but my dad, he was in prison all of my childhood, and so I needed to be a positive male role model in my life, in the siblings of my in the lives of my siblings. And so I wanted to stay in Nashville. And in fact, when I was playing at Backfield in Motion, the first year I played, I was in the All-Star game, and we played that game at Vanderbilt University. And I got to meet players. I got to see all of these different people, and I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be cool. What if I could do this one day? What if I could be on this field one day? And then the next year I played in the All-Star game, and it was there, and it was like this dream of mine. And I think it's always important, critical, to have a dream, to have dreams and goals, because nothing great was accomplished without first thinking it, right? Intentionality. You have to have an intentionality on something that you want out there. Set it down, maybe write it down, and then start to work toward that. So at 10 years old, I made a goal to play at Vanderbilt University. And when I was graduating, I did what I had to do to get into Vanderbilt. I didn't get an offer from Vanderbilt. We need to talk to some folks, Dr. Gill. We need to talk. Why didn't I? Come on. But when I got into the school, I decided to walk on. I walked on. I got a former teammate here. I walked on, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. And I dedicated so much time and so much of my energy to football while I was playing that I neglected, similar to some of our student athletes, I neglected thinking about life after football. And so I got to the end of my junior year, and I'm looking at myself, and I'm not going to make it to the NFL. I'm injured everywhere. I'm limping to the bathroom every single morning. What am I doing, and what is the rest of my life going to look like? I really didn't have a plan for that, even though I had some great education. I had a great network, which I'll talk about later, and I had all these great things, but I didn't have a plan. And so I made one of the toughest decisions of my life, and I decided after my junior year, this is James Franklin coming in, we just went to a bowl game, we were rolling, that I wasn't going to play anymore. And I can't tell y'all the amount of pain that I felt making that decision. Like, it was so hard on me, because I think often we overlook it, but losing something as important as a sport, as important as a job or whatever it is, something that is tied to your identity, that is kin to losing a person that you love very dearly. And so I was grieving the loss of football. I don't think I've ever told you this, but the year after I stopped playing, I didn't watch a single game. I did not support y'all. I did not come out there, and that hurts me to say today. But it hurt even more to watch it and know that I wasn't out there with my brothers. And so I was grieving that, and I had to understand that. I had to understand, how do I move past this and transition beyond this? And so with that time off, though, I started to focus, and I started to plan ahead. And I got an internship at the Entrepreneur Center, where I learned critical skills on networking, right? A network is your net worth. That's what you hear, right? Right? Talk to people. Mr. Ron's going to tell you, talk to people. And it's not as hard as you think it is, because as a student athlete, as a professional athlete, people want to talk to you. You don't have to say much. And it's a lot harder to get someone to accept your phone call, accept your meeting request when you're a has-been. It's still possible, but it's a lot harder. But I guarantee any of y'all in here in this room today, student athletes, if you type an email or type a message to somebody and say, hey, I liked what you said and I want to meet, they will meet with you. That's how bad people want to see you succeed, especially when you are young. And so use that leverage that you have. Right? I ended up interning at the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, and I met nearly every investor, every entrepreneur, everybody that you could think of that was doing something in business in this city. I met them, and I saw them every single day. And I'm getting names, I'm getting emails, I'm getting phone numbers, back to what we learned about NIL earlier. And I was building this list, and I still have that list to this day. And that led to me still not really having a plan, because it was a summer internship, but I got to the end of my senior year and decided that I was going to go back to school, and I got a master's in accounting. I did my undergrad in economics and business, got a master's in accounting, because in my mind I always wanted to be in business. And I started at the Owen Graduate School of Management at Vanderbilt University for a whole year, studied accounting, got a CPA, certified public accountant license, and then had opportunity to work for the big four accounting firms. These are some of the biggest and best companies to work for in the entire world. And I'm sitting there, and I had my choice, because, and this is what I learned through that recruiting process, they didn't care what I knew, honestly. Like, they assumed that I came with some good qualities and some ability to learn what they did, but they didn't care what I knew. The number one thing that they said when they recruited me was that they liked being around me. I think we overlook that so often, right? If people like being around you, they might want to hire you. They might want to see you for 12 hours a day when you work in those long hours. So be a person that people like. Be pleasant to be around. That's what got me hired. And not everybody in my program got offers from every firm, but I did, because people liked being around me. And so I started at Deloitte. I picked one of the companies, and I started at Deloitte and worked there and had a phenomenal time. Phenomenal time. I learned a lot of stuff, but I was doing external audit. And if y'all know anything about accountants and auditors, they don't do this. And it wasn't well suited for what I knew was inside me. But I stuck it out, and I learned, right? I learned as much as I could. I became a sponge and soaked up everything that I could. And then one day, it was during the summer, and during the summers in public accounting, it was very chill, very relaxed, and I didn't like that. I liked to be on full tilt, go, go, go. And I was sitting there one night, and I saw this quote by Steve Jobs, and it just literally changed my perspective on everything. The quote said, Work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. And don't worry if you haven't found it yet, but don't settle. Because it's with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And I read that again. And I'm sitting here like, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. So I typed my email up. I'm like, look. And I was very arrogant back in the day. This is how I addressed it. I said, to all my fans, no lie. Like, you can go find it. To all my fans, comma. And then I left my message, and I was like, I'm done here. And I didn't have anything planned like any smart millennial. I just left, right? I don't encourage that. Have plans, right? But I left because I knew that what I had inside of me and the passions that I had in my life were different. Not that there was a bad place to work, but it was just different. And it was something that I needed. And so I left and I started looking for different opportunities. I wanted to be back in sports. I wanted to be doing different things that I learned in school that I didn't know much about. And so I learned about wealth management. And there was a wealth management firm that offered me a position. And so I started to learn about all these different things, investing. I learned about estate planning. I learned about taxes. I learned about all this different stuff that we often shy away from because it's so intimidating. But I wanted to learn those skills because, again, I grew up poor. That was a pain point for me. And if I could solve that pain point for myself and help other people in the process, that's something that I want to do. And so I got into wealth management. I remember sitting down across from a client and being like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And I stayed at that company for a couple of years. And again, that wasn't really involved in sports. I wanted to get back involved in sports because one thing I think is hard for student athletes to understand is that not everybody is going to make it to the professional level. But if you look around, you've heard some people from the Titans organization. You hear people from all over, whether it's an agent, an advisor to an agent, NIL people. You can work in sports without playing on the field or without running on the track. And so I'm like, okay, athletes need their wealth managed. I can do this. I can provide that service. And so after a couple of years of working at the wealth management firm, I started a company, and I called it Rose Creek Wealth Management. And the name derived itself from the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete. You know, through all the perceived impossibilities, through the struggle, little water, poor soil, no light, its tenacity helped it reach the sun. And I looked at my story, that my story epitomized that metaphor. And so I wanted to bring that to life and celebrate that, not only in my life, but in the lives of so many other people. And so I started Rose Creek in 2018, and it took off. Did so well, had so much positive feedback and so much good response to my business. And then 6 months into it, I found myself lying in the cold hardwood floor in a fetal position, crying my eyes out. Right through all of that trauma, right? I didn't even talk about much of it. That's what I would do in life. I would suppress and keep on moving. Work became my coping mechanism. That's what I did. I didn't turn to drugs. I didn't turn to alcohol. I turned to work. I'm going to stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning and get it done because I don't want to feel. And then it caught up to me. It caught up to me. And when I realized that was more important than the money, than the houses, than the things, that's when I got onto this mental health journey. And in that journey, I realized that there was this process of all the things that I had done and all the things that I think I will do in the future that helped me continue along in my life. It's the process of perseverance. And to sum it up, the process of perseverance is from pain to passion, from passion to purpose, from purpose to power, and power to peace. And without realizing, I had already implemented that process when I started the wealth management company. Right, my pain point. If you grew up in poverty, if you've ever been poor, if you ever missed a meal because you didn't have the money, you know what that pain is like. That's pain, right? And we're supposed to feel the pain. You shouldn't neglect the pain. Feel the pain. Because imagine if you put your hand on a hot stove and you didn't feel pain. What are you gonna do? Burn. You're gonna burn. Or you might take it off, not realize, and put it back. Keep making the same mistakes. That pain is meant to teach you, right? The pain that you feel is meant to teach you. Those emotions that you feel, that's survival. We feel those things because it teaches us to survive. And so feel the pain. My pain was poverty. But that pain turns into passion. So what's the passion? The passion is that emotion that rises up. It's the desire to not feel that pain anymore. I don't want to feel poor, so I'm going to go and work. My whole life, I was an entrepreneur. I was selling something. I was a barber. I was selling candy and clothes and everything, fireworks. I had to not be poor. I don't want to know what it feels like to be broke. But be careful about that one, right? Because passion alone doesn't do it. Because you can be very passionate. A lot of crimes are committed in passion. You can be very passionate about something, but it doesn't always convert to something good. And that's where purpose comes in. Purpose is going to drive you toward that ultimate goal that you have. You got to follow your purpose and passion. You got to combine those two. Purpose is the positive thing when you put the positive twist to passion. So that purpose of mine was to not only make money, but to do it in a good way. Because I could have turned to other ways. There were people in the neighborhood saying, hey, come this way. Join the family business. Family business for me, my dad, he sold drugs. That's how he ended up in prison. I could have done that, and I could have made a lot of money doing that, but that wasn't going to be the ultimate purpose for me. I wanted to do it in the right way. And so I had to figure out putting all these tools together. And that's where the power comes in. Right, going to school, learning economics, corporate strategy, business, finance, accounting. This is going to help me in any business that I run. Every business that you know of, they have those offices. They have somebody working in those fields. And I knew that. And so that was the power for me. It was the undisputable facts that you couldn't argue why I'm supposed to be up here right now, why I'm supposed to be the founder of that company, why I'm supposed to be the boss, the CEO. Make it undisputable by building that power up. Maybe you have to get credentialed, CPA, Series 7, Series 66, insurance licenses. Or maybe you have to write a book. A lot of credibility comes when you write a book. It's crazy. But people know that you got the dedication to sit down and write a 200+ page book. Oh, this person got something to talk about, or at least they have the willpower to stick through it. Right? That's power. Find that power and cultivate that. And when you start walking in your purpose and standing in your power, that's where the peace comes in. From pain to passion, passion to purpose, purpose to power, power to peace. That's the process of perseverance, right? I don't worry about the same pain points that I used to worry about as it relates to money. But like I said earlier, the only constant in life is change. And so things started to change when I found myself on that cold hardwood floor with money. Mental health became the focus. I didn't want to feel that pain anymore. I don't want my brothers, my sisters, nobody to feel that pain anymore. And so it took educating myself. It took finding different forms of therapy. I think often when we think about therapy, we think about therapists sitting there, me sitting here, and we talking. Or I might have my legs kicked up, but no. I found that that chair might represent my mama, and this podium might represent my daddy. And we doing something where role playing, where it's called psychodrama. And I've had more breakthroughs in different types of therapy like that. Listening to different music and different frequencies. Dr. Kofi talked about vibrations, listening to different music. All of these different things. I have a whole system now, and when I wake up, I'm gonna journal. I'm gonna meditate. First, I'm gonna make my bed. Because if I die right after that, I at least did something for that day, and I can be happy about that. And that's some consistency that I built in my life. Then I'm going to journal, meditate, and I'm going to read from an affirmations book. And then I do something for myself. Something. I got coloring books at home. I got a remote control car to love on myself, to love that inner me, that inner child in me. And so I do those things. But again, that same process of perseverance, the pains, laying there on that cold hardwood floor, turning to passion. I don't want to feel this anymore. Purpose. I need to get all of this education in me so I can get to a place where I don't feel this anymore. Power. I wrote a book about mental health and social justice. Y'all can get it in the back. I'm featured in a lot of different articles talking about mental health. I speak to different audiences about the power of mental health and taking it seriously. And then peace. I'll say, when I heard Zach say that he is finally happy, that made me so happy. That made me so happy to lose a brother and to find peace from that. I got another brother in the crowd, and I'm not going to point him out, but he lost a brother as well, and I know finding peace after that is tough. So that was the end goal for me, is to find peace. And the last holiday season, I could say I was finally peaceful for once. You know, Christmas and Thanksgiving, all that used to bring back a lot of emotion, a lot of negative emotion. But last Christmas, I was happy as can be. I came home one day and I told my wife, I was like, hey, get in the car. We're finna just go look at Christmas lights. Who is this person? I don't even recognize it. But that was me finding peace through all the work and all the things that I had done in my life, right? So when you think, there are three things I want you to remember as you think about the transition from sportsman or sportswoman to life after sports. And I've dropped some of the tidbits, like staying adaptable, right? Having goals. But there are three things that I think are important. One is surround yourself with a phenomenal team. And that's not just your friends. That's not just the people that you hang out with, but mentors, also therapists, doctors. Surround yourself with a phenomenal team. It's going to be critical to your success. Second, stay open to feedback and criticism. Because I think we'll get to a place where we're not open to that. And if you look at some of the greatest people in the world, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, they all had coaches. Stay open to criticism and feedback, because whether you're the lowest employee on the totem pole or the boss, you're going to need advisors. You're going to need people to help you get to the levels that you want to reach. And then ultimately, take care of your mental health, because you are not worth anything if you're lying there on that cold hardwood floor. Right? I had a friend tell me that he called me, and this is a result of what I get from being very vulnerable and telling my story. But he called me and he said, man, I'm sorry I didn't call you before, but I was about to blow my brains out on Saturday. That's the call I got. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, okay, what do I need? What can I do to help, right? How can I help? What resources can I provide for you to help you out? He's like, man, I just need therapists. I need places to go. I need something. Just send me a list if you can. I was like, bet. And I was like, can you take some time off from work? And he said, no, I've been working on this project for the last 6 months. I need to finish it. And I'm sitting there thinking, you were almost gone this past weekend, and the first thing that's on your mind is work, right? One thing about these companies, about schools, about teams, about all these different things is that they are built to sustain themselves. A company is going to sustain themselves. You done seen people get fired. You done seen people leave. You done seen people die. And the company continues. That's why they're built the way that they're built. So do not ever put the livelihood of a company before your livelihood. Maintain your mental health. And I'm going to leave y'all with this. Right now is all we have, because the past no longer exists. And the future never was. So right now, this is it. They ask me why I do what I do, and this is what I tell them. I get on stages and I talk about my pain so that nobody has to feel them. Because the pain from the past does not dictate the present. And the fear of the future only worries me if I let it. All we have is now, a moment to share with you, to tell you about my past and all the things I went through. Abused and neglected, a lot that's hurt me. But I rise above it, and you can too. Just keep working. Take your losses and turn them into lessons. Give grace and give back. That's the way to many blessings. Speak with conviction and love with no conditions. Stand tall, stand proud, and unlearn unhealthy traditions. Follow your passions and believe in your visions. Fall in love with the process and stay firm in your intentions. And trust that the results will be a byproduct of the work. And don't bottle up emotions, because as we know, bottles can burst. Create the life you choose to live and surround yourself with those you love. Give thanks for every breath. And linger with every hug. For all we have is now, this moment, this day. Spread light and love everywhere you go and tell people that's the R2A way. My name is Reggie Ford. I appreciate y'all.